while the AEW Wrestle Dream pay-per-view event was taking place, there was an exchange of words on Twitter, or what people now know as X, between Dax Harwood of FTR Tag Team and JD from NY, the YouTuber, wrestling podcast host, whatever it is he does. And this all started when JD had commented in the news, so I guess it came out that Jimmy Jacobs had left the AEW creative team. So it looks like he's left overall. And JD had said, Jimmy Jacobs resigns from AEW after Tony Khan publicly stated he was seated as his right-hand man creatively. Oh yeah? Something doesn't smell right with this one. He is burnt out. From what? What are you burnt out by? You work 1 day a week with Tony Khan. Wouldn't it be 2 days a week at least? 1 day a week with Tony Khan making up a majority of the show and what he wants to see. The report also cited the split was amicable. Of course it was. That's what AEW wants you to believe. Tony Khan hears and sees the discourse about how terrible his on-air product is and needs someone to blame. Tony Khan certainly can't be blamed. No one will ever publicly admit that it's wrong. Everything is effing great. Though I guarantee if you ask people there, everything is not great. Well, he's not wrong there, JD, on that one. I'll give him that. I guess like an old squirrel, blind squirrel finds a nut every now and then. But it goes on. So Jimmy Jacobs was fired. And Jimmy Jacobs is the scapegoat for better television. I see it already. Look, guys, change is coming. I am actively making changes. Sure thing, Tony. It starts and ends with you. Everyone else's opinion is dust in the wind. Might as well calling yourself a McMahon. And he went there. The similarities are scary. Now, I've got issues with Tony Khan, but some of the stuff that comes out of this guy's mouth, JD, is like something else. His imagination is something else, man, I'll tell you. But then Dax then responds. He sees this and he responds. He goes, dude, I feel so sorry for you. Like, we get that you're a mark and you love that another company makes you feel special, but my God, dude. If I hated something as much as you hate AEW and Tony, I'd just stop watching it, right? It's almost stalker-like how infatuated you are with Tony. It was interesting when I saw this on NoDQ.com when it said Dax says wrestling podcast host online demeanor stalker-like. I was thinking he had gotten into it with Eric Bischoff again, and Bischoff was talking shit on his channel, But yeah, so it's almost stalker-like how infatuated you are with Tony and his company. You make it pretty obvious that you're a mark. I'm a mark too. But I don't make wrestling YouTubes to yell and scream about the owner of a company not giving me what I want. I just enjoy wrestling. I'm doing real life things like paying my mortgage, making sure the bills are taken care of. My tequila cabinet is full. Rock would pop for that, I guess. He's a big tequila guy, huh? But you're making tweets and videos about the AEW product. I'm sure you'll say, oh my God, this guy's riding AEW. Guys, look at him sticking up for the company he works for. What an idiot, right? But my God, man, we get it. You love SmackDown and Raw. Effing go watch it. Leave us alone. LOL. Anyway, HOG has asked FTR to be a part of their show. HOG? What's that stand for? I hope to see you there, brother. And then JD gets back into it. He goes, Dax, I actually feel sorry for you that you had to write this in the middle of what's going on in your neck of the woods. I've had very close friends who live there, who dealt with ramifications of Helene. I mean this from the bottom of my heart, that I pray for you and your family and wish you nothing but the best in your recovery efforts. We love you guys and look forward to getting you and Cash back on TV. And then Dax comes back. He goes, I'm not allowed to tweet after I've almost donated 6 figures to relief efforts. I'm not allowed to tweet about my company. How much have you donated to your friends? How much have you donated to your friends in Western North Carolina and Tennessee? What have you done? Or have you just continued to tweet? Send me your friends' contact info. I'll make sure they're okay. So with this overall, I mean, first off, I'll say that, I must say I don't really take to Dax Harwood all that much, but I'm kind of like more on his side than this one over Tony JD from NY, because for one, the main thing I would say, because Dax Harwood is actually in the business, he's working for AEW, and JD from NY just a lot of shit. He just talks a lot out of his ass, to be honest with you. And a lot of it is just him running with certain narratives that he wants to run with. A lot of the time it can be a Vince narrative, anti-Vince narrative. Yeah, you can be critical about Vince McMahon about a lot of things, but he'll even just make stuff up on top of that. JD from NY, some of the stuff that he's come out before, when Shotzi Blackheart shaved her head, and he blamed Vince for that, but then we later find out it was in tribute to her sister because she was battling cancer. Stuff like this where JD is really a clown, and really at that point with the whole Shotzi thing, that should have been any credibility he had. He should have really lost. And I think the mistake that maybe Dax made is that, you know, you're giving this guy oxygen, you're giving him energy, you know, by responding to his tweets. You know, it's one thing me doing a video with 3,000 subscribers, but when Dax Harwood's in the business, he's got hundreds of thousands of followers, it's a little bit different, because there might be a lot of his followers that, you know, aren't familiar with JD from NY, and all of a sudden they go and then they check him out, and that gives him views and maybe some extra subscribers. But with this, so JD from NY wasn't going to go, you know, just he wasn't going to lie down on this one, right? So he got back, and he's on his Mark podcast, and then they're covering the whole, you know, whatever, you know, the Wrestle Dream pay-per-view that AEW had. So he responds a bit to Dax Harwood. So I'm going to play a bit of this clip from the JD's channel. Here we go.
So what did Dax have to say, man? Listen, I want to read off what I said here about Jimmy Jacobs first, okay? Because I fully believe that this is the case. I don't give a fuck what anybody says. I know Sapp was in my mentions. I don't give a fuck what Sapp says. This is the same. This is very WWE-esque here. Very WWE-esque. So I said last night after the stream was over, after Friday Night SmackDown, and the people were telling me, Jimmy Jacobs, he got he let go from AEW. He resigned from AEW. So I said, Jimmy Jacobs resigns from AEW after Tony Khan publicly stated that he was seated as his right-hand man creatively. Oh, yeah? Something doesn't smell right with this one. He is burnt out, apparently. From what? You're burnt out by what? You work one day a week on Dynamite with Tony Khan making up a majority of the show and what he wants to see. The report also cited the split was amicable. Of course it was. That's what AEW wants you to believe. Tony Khan hears and sees the discourse online about how terrible his on-air product is and needs someone to blame. Tony Khan certainly can't be blamed. No one will publicly admit there is wrong. Everything is fucking great. Though I guarantee you, if you ask people there, everything is not great. Jimmy Jacobs was fired, and Jimmy Jacobs is the scapegoat for better television. I see it happening already. Look, guys, change is coming. I'm actively making changes. Sure thing, TK. It starts and ends with you. Everyone else's opinion is dust in the wind. Might as well call yourself a McMahon. The similarities are scary. We've heard that story many times before, where Vince surrounded himself with yes-men and usually gave them the opportunity to take the fall because he didn't want the blame for what was going wrong on television. Fast forward to Dax. This is his reply as I pull it up here. Dude, I feel so sorry for you. Like, we get that you're a mark, and you love that another company makes you feel special. But my God, dude, if I hated something as much as you hate AEW and Tony, I'd just stop watching it, right? Gonna stop there. Jesse, do we hate AEW?
Absolutely not.
Don't know where he gets off saying that. I don't hate AEW, but I hate bad television. It's not the same thing. It's almost stalker-like how infatuated you are with Tony and his company. Jesse, who is infatuated with who here?
We were talking about this off the air. It seems that Dax Softwood, all that Dax has to say, if he doesn't care anything about what JD says or what we say here, all he has to say is nothing. All he has to do is block, ignore, and not even know that JD exists anymore. But he can't do that for whatever reason. He has to keep posting his public opinion about a podcaster who he's trying to convince other people that doesn't know what he's talking about or doesn't like the product. But yet, you keep talking about... There are people that I don't give a shit about. There's a guy that used to work on this fucking channel with you on fucking Tuesdays that I don't give a flying fuck about. Do you see me talking about him at all?
No.
Because I don't care. I genuinely do not care. I don't hate him enough to talk shit about him. I don't want to do... I just obliterate him from existence as far as I'm concerned. Why does Dax care so much about what you fucking think? He is obsessed with what you fucking think.
I don't know. I think it all stems from the fact that I am a little bit too close to the fire when it comes to what is actually happening in AEW, and the fact is I don't even work there. I think he doesn't like the fact that I am very truthful in what I say, and everything that I say is legitimately that close to being correct. So that's the problem. Just like I was with WWE, just like it is with AEW. I'll get to that point in a second. He says, you make it pretty obvious that you're a mark. We're all marks, Dax. We're watching pro wrestling and tweeting about pro wrestling, and we're live talking about pro wrestling at 3 a.m. Eastern, 2 a.m. Central. Give me a break. I'm a mark too, but I don't make YouTube channels to yell and scream about an owner of a company not giving me what I want. Boy, I didn't know that was an issue.
Well, I mean, the thing is, JD, where do you work in the morning when you get up? Where do you go to work?
I go to work sitting in the chair that I'm conducting this live stream in right now.
Okay, so Dax likes to worry about things like paying the mortgage and things that are important because that is important. He is correct. So Dax pays his bills and his mortgage by doing what?
By pro wrestling.
Great. Now, how do you pay your bills?
I pay my bills and I support my family and help out around the house by talking about pro wrestling.
So how in the...
Right, so there we go. So one thing with that, though, like when Dax is getting into that talk about paying the bills and mortgage through wrestling, it's like, you don't have to justify yourself to JD from NY, of all people. So you don't really need to be bringing up that stuff in a message to him. But then, JD from NY coming back and saying, well, this is what I do for a living. This is how I pay the bills and pay the mortgage, all that. But it's like, there's a huge, big fundamental difference there. It's like, Dax Harwood is actually in the wrestling business. He is in the wrestling business, and he is a professional wrestler. JD from NY is your typical like arrogant, obnoxious armchair quarterback. There's a huge difference there. JD from NY, he's just a podcaster. He's like a shock jock type host. He's not like a credible like journalist or whatever other type pundit. You can get people that have been in wrestling who aren't actually wrestlers, but people are around like Bill Apter and people like that who would, with all the years that they had in the business, there's a level of respect there they had amongst people in the business and the fellow talent. Very, very few people would dislike somebody like a Bill Apter, right? Like there'd be something wrong with them if they did. But JD from NY, you're probably I would venture to guess that probably 99.9% of talent in AEW don't like him and think he's a joke. And then you probably got the same thing in AEW. WWE and AEW. Both WWE and AEW. Even Ring of Honor, the roster there probably doesn't have time for a JD from NY. So it's like, it's so different. It's like, yeah, he does make a living from wrestling, but it's almost like in a kind of more like a, like he's in a parasite. That's the kind of nature that JD has. I've got a channel and I don't make a living off of my channel. I make an extra little bit of money. Like it's kind of like, you could call it like a side hustle, and that would be putting it in a generous way. But, I know I've got skills and I've got attributes and talents where I don't need to depend on, I don't have to solely make my living off of giving my opinions on things that are happening in wrestling. JD does. Because I guess, some might say, and I don't want to be too judgmental, that JD wouldn't be able to survive in the real world and get a real job. So he has to resort to this. And sure, he makes a lot of money from his channel, no doubt. He makes good money, decent money. He makes a living. And, he's got a lot of subscribers. So it's one of those things when anybody is critical of JD from NY and talking about how it's so unnecessary, how he used to rant and rave and shout all the time, he can just go, oh, well, you're just jealous because I've got so many more followers than you and like shit like that. But yeah, I mean, with this stuff with Dax, did Dax have to get into it with him? No. But then I can maybe understand it from the point of Dax Harwood. If he's just reading this bullshit that he, from a guy who thinks he knows it all about what's going on in the business, and he's there and he's around these people every week. And a lot of people are like friends, acquaintances, and he knows the real deal, what's going on with this guy, Jimmy Jacobs. And you're thinking, man, and you just look at this guy thinking, man, you've got no clue. And it's probably another big thing as well, that he's shitting on people, I believe Dax Harwood, for the most part, has a good relationship with Tony Khan, and for all we know, that maybe Tony Khan has done good stuff for Dax Harwood and his family, paid him well, good contract, done other things behind the scenes we don't know about. So, when JD from NY's, resorting to all this bullshit and to this you could be anti Tony Khan about a lot of things, but it's kind of like he's just off the mark with this a bit, really. Let's be honest, JD from NY. I mean, this again, the same guy that went right away to bashing Vince McMahon when Shotzi Blackheart shaved her head, and he was blaming him over it. And then later we found out it was because her sister had cancer. That's why she did it. But this stuff, Jimmy Jacobs, right? I don't think he got fired. I think probably Jimmy Jacobs. Wasn't this the guy that he got let go by WWE because he went outside when the Elite, but just really before AEW was getting set up, that they were outside? It was Cody, the Young Bucks, Brandy, and he went out and posed with them. It was almost like Jimmy Jacobs was probably just saying, like, yeah, please release me, WWE, I've had enough. But maybe now, because things have changed now. This is back when it was Vince McMahon was still there at the helm. So maybe now he's thinking, a lot of things have changed now. Maybe, with Triple H and things a little bit more, creative freedom there he would have, and maybe he's got friends there. Maybe there came a point where he was just like, you know what, maybe I want to go back there. And maybe that's why he's quit. And soon you'll see him back in the WWE. I don't think it's necessarily something. I would be very surprised if he got fired. I think it was probably just a thing that he resigned, that he had enough. So yeah, but then JD jumped the gun with that. But who knows? Maybe it was that was the real action. Tony Khan just let him go, but then had to be a thing about, it's that thing that sometimes people save face. To save face, they'll say they resigned, and not that they actually were asked we're going to let you go, kind of thing. I don't know, but my guess would be probably that he actually did legitimately resign to Jimmy Jacobs. But yeah, it must have just been one of these things, because Dax Harwood being there in AEW for 4 years now, about 4.5 years, he has a real attachment there to a lot of people there, and it's not just even talent, it's people behind the scenes, the crew guys, everything. And then when he's on this kind of like anti-AEW crusade, and he's, I can understand Dax feeling a certain way about it. I don't really take to him in general, but I can understand him just thinking, nah, fuck it, I'm going to put this guy in his place, But the thing with that, though, I just feel like when you respond to guys like JD, this is what they want. They love this because this is going to get so many clicks for them, get extra views, get extra subscribers. That's what they want, and they kind of thrive on that. So that's where I would say maybe you should have thought it through before you pressed the post button, to respond to JD from NY. But yeah, he's such an obnoxious guy. And at least one thing with Dax Harwood, I no doubt he loves the business and he busts his ass for the business. And, a guy like JD just wouldn't have it in him to do that. He hasn't got the guts to do that. I don't know. And by the way, I don't know what the hell was up with JD from NY's hair. If I just go back, it was like, he's like got some like real long hair now. It's like some weird hairstyle. It's, I don't know, man, but it was very like weird looking, like he trying to grow out his hair long. I don't know, man. But yeah, I mean, it's weird because he seems to flip flop, doesn't he, JD from NY? And that, before it used to be FWB, I'm pro AEW, but now it seems to be more like he's changed, he's flip flop, right, and he's more anti AEW, pro WWE. That seems to be his stance, right? And yeah, saying, but well, you might as well call yourself a McMahon and all that stuff. And the guy just doesn't know what he's talking about, because he's not a guy that has ever really been in it. I mean, okay, what does he do? Some like commentary for like one local indie promotion, but he's not really in the business. One of these local indie promotions with all those weekend warriors. It's like, whatever, man, whatever. But yeah, Dax Harwood, they had the little clash, Dax and JD from NY, and I think Dax set him straight. I initially thought it was Eric Bischoff he was going to go at, but JD, that's probably even better, because I mean, Bischoff does have some valid criticism with AEW. You know, I sometimes wonder though that there's people that say, well, Bischoff's maybe a shell because it's always seems to be he's critical of AEW but never critical of WWE. Maybe there's something to that. That, you know, there could be, but there is a lot of things. You know, there is some valid criticisms he has though with you know, with AEW. And look, you know, I'm not. This isn't me on some pro AEW shit either. You know, you know, when you've got Tony Khan, who for the most part just acts like a total dark, and you know, it's all this, you know, oh, I book for the sickos type, you know, bullshit. But it's just, yeah, I suppose they have their issues, and you know, it was a shit. I think they got a terrible, horrible rating for the last Dynamite show that was like a Tuesday, but I think for the most part, people did not know it was a Tuesday. They didn't promote it right. So yeah, maybe AEW have some problems, and maybe, you know, I hate to give the guy credit, but JD maybe does have something right there when it says, you know, there's issues there, but people are afraid to say anything. You know, but it's, I don't know. I mean, Tony Khan, yeah, he probably there's a lot of creative freedom that talent have there. But then, yeah, maybe people know it's like a pick your battles thing with Tony Khan, and they're not going to be like, hey, man, I think some of your ideas, they're shit, they suck. It's like, it's all about the right time and the right place when you're doing that to, like, speak up, but you can't do that all the time. Is there people that do that at AEW? Maybe, I don't know, but then their approach is maybe more like not like a blunt, but more like a polite diplomatic type thing that they would do with Tony. I don't know, like JR would be like that. He'd be a straight shooter. But yeah, I mean, there's some things, there's definitely, they need some improvements, you know, so if that's the point that JD was trying to get across, yeah, he's got a point there. But when JD gets into this whole thing and jumping to conclusions, and then it's like it's almost like it's like that type of kind of like persecution complex, you know, when you start like, oh, you know, the evil WWE empire and all that. And yeah, there's a lot of fucked up bad shit that was happening there, obviously, but it's like he's in no position to have that kind of complex, because at the end of the day, he's just like an ignorant, obnoxious douche. That's what he is. And you know, he's in fair play though. He plays the game well because he's built up a huge following over time. You know, so he's done something right. I'll give him that. But I think on this one, he's in the wrong, and I think like a guy in the business who's done many miles, and you know, he was right to just put JD in his place. But JD will be happy, though, because he'll get some extra views and extra money out of it. But, you know, anybody who boots JD from NY in their place, sets them straight, they're good in my book. So that's all I'm saying. But that's me for now, guys. You know what to do. Feel free to like, hit that subscribe button. I'll leave a couple, there's a video there that I've done previously. Well, that's stuff that JD spoke about. Then there's another one there where I was, you know, you'll see at the start when I was just saying what a clown JD from NY was before. That was a few months back. But leave a comment, guys. Let me know what your thoughts were on all this stuff with JD and Dax Harwood. Be interesting to hear what your take, guys. But that's me for now. Thank you very much.